I thought today we could try something a little bit different from the last podcast. And I thought what we could do um, is have me go through one of the reflective journaling structures, only instead of writing down my responses, I'm going to go through them myself out loud so you can hear my thought process. This is completely unscripted. I'm just going to go through and answer the darn questions and see what comes out of my mouth. Today I'm using some questions that are inspired by a book called Essentialism, and now I've forgotten the author's name, so let me see if I can pull that up. Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. And McKeown is spelled McKeown. So the form says, Essentialism Questions, zooming in on you is the first module. And the first question is, what do I feel deeply inspired by? I would say that two things jump to mind. One is when I find myself being truly of service to other people, or to one other person, and I feel like I'm being not only helpful, but drawing from deep within my reserves of strengths, like I'm at my limit and they are flourishing because of it. They're tapping into their own deeper thoughts, or they feel supported, or they feel nourished and mentored and cared for, I guess. And I'm not talking necessarily about my coaching, although that's definitely one place when I feel that way. I remember feeling this way for the first time when I was a counselor at a Girl Scout camp, and I was in charge of a cabin of these 9-year-old girls, and I think there were 11 of them. And I was with them for 22 hours a day, and I was only about 22 at the time. I wasn't a parent, and it was just a shock to my system, and I felt such a deep sense of care for these girls and pride in myself. I felt like I could go further with what I could do and push past these points of surface level resistance and just have reserves of strength that I didn't know I had. So there's that sense of being inspired by service, I guess. And then there's this other thing that inspires me, which is just the vastness of space and time. Like geologic time blows my mind, and I love looking up at the stars and looking at the way the sky always changes. And I realize there's a third thing that inspires me in a really practical way, and that is being creative. I love to come up with ideas, and I love to smash two different concepts together to see what emerges from the combination. And that idea of ideation really lights a fire under my butt nearly every time, and I can just ride that out on like a comet of inspiration. It can be a little dangerous at times because I get overextended. So I've learned I actually have to rein in that little bit of knowledge about myself, about how creativity can really overextend me. So that was the first question. The next question is, what am I particularly talented at? Oh boy. I'm talented at ideation. I'm a good piano player, pretty good singer. I think I have developed real strengths in leadership and listening and coaching, but I would say that those are after effects of having weaknesses in those areas and intentional development in them. Because the way I kind of emerged into the world was as this sort of very directive, impatient, decisive, and insecure little being, and I've had to put some time into achieving different perspectives and habits around those areas. So I think I'm also talented at being resilient. So let's say ideation, music, and resilience are my native talents. And the next question here is, what meets a significant need in the world? Okay. Well, I think that my talent with creativity and my learned interpersonal coaching listening skills combine in the coaching. And the coaching, I feel, is meeting a significant need in the world, because I think that with coaching, people can sort of find themselves and live themselves without this weight of cultural assumptions, without insecurity, kind of lifted out from this kind of constrained worldview into something that's where possibilities seem not only more abundant but more possible. Like, it's plausible that you could have a little method or a little process or a little goal, and that it will work well, and that you can achieve these things, and that you actually do have the talent, the time, the energy, and the worthiness to go after them with a pretty decent likelihood of succeeding, or at least of finding a pathway to something that will work even better for you and who you are and what you have an affinity for. And I think if all people felt this sense of there is enough for everybody, and we can collaborate, and using our talents and affinities, we can work together to create a world that is peaceful, and where resources are plentiful, and where opportunities for creativity and communication are just littering the ground. That would be amazing. And my coaching, I feel, is my little, it's like prying open the veil and offering that future a chance to slip in through the cracks a little bit. So I'm definitely hoping that other people will help pry open that veil and let that future come in. So the next question is, assuming that you can do anything but not everything, what would you like to do? Oh, I just found a typo in this. It says, assuming that you can doing anything but not everything. I'm just going to fix that. Oh, assuming that I could do anything but not everything. So for me, this has been quite the struggle. I'm often quite enthusiastic about different fields. Like my little byline when I'm talking to people is, oh, don't worry about me. Next month I'll be an astronaut, or next month I'll be a biologist, or next month I'll be a firefighter. To me, different areas of focus and skill and knowledge are incredibly tantalizing, and I just want to learn about them all. And then I want to smash them together and turn them into something new. Like, what would happen if you meshed together a firefighter with an astronaut? And then what if I was a novelist writing about firefighter astronauts? And then my mind spins up, and for a month I'm a novelist writing about firefighter astronauts. And well, that's kind of how I roll. So for me, it's been quite a decades-long journey to settle myself into my skin, and focus down on the areas where I feel like not only am I good at something, but the world isn't resisting it. Like, I'm not forcing a certain outcome out. And for me, a real turning point was reading The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann, and stepping out of the center of my interactions and really focusing on giving what I can to other people with no expectation of anything in return. And what I've found is that this framework really smooths the way, because if I'm just giving and creating, the things that come back to me are unexpected. For example, just how good I feel when I'm doing something helpful for somebody else. That sense of pride in myself and joy in helping others is surprisingly pleasurable. So when they say when they say that virtue is its own reward, it's not this like puritanical, austere, stern little slap on the wrist with a ruler. It's more like, oh, virtue is its own reward. This feels really good. Wow, that was a massive amount of answering to that question. I guess it means something to me. So I guess the thing I've chosen to do is to channel this kind of go-givingness with my talent of creativity and my learned skill of interpersonal stuff into coaching. So I'm kind of integrated. And I feel like that is something that is really helpful to kind of put my focus on, because I still get to be creative. I still get to mesh together ideas and learn, but I get these other benefits of using my listening skills and my question formation and my removal of myself from the center and aim it at meeting this need in the world, which is people who are powerful and integrated and working for a future that is beautiful. All right, so the next question is, which few things really matter? To me, the most important thing in my life is taking really good care of my 6-year-old son and making sure that he is experiencing a childhood that is vibrant and healthy and in which he's really thriving, and we're connecting him to his points of talent and points of happiness, and also showing him how he can prepare himself for adulthood. It's important to me that he feels he is a good person and he knows how to be good to other people, and that he has, the necessary life skills for functioning as an adult. Like, I want him to know how to do his laundry and how to prepare for his day so he has an effective and pleasant day without stresses piling up unnecessarily. So my son really matters to me. I would also say that my home life in general matters to me. These people that I live with are a great part of my focus and a great part of the joy and meaning in my life. And my family and my friends. So I would say that one of my highest priorities is my relationships, family and friends and colleagues and clients and piano students, etc. And I'd say also my wellness and my sense of vocation, purpose and vocation. So let's go with relationships, wellness, and vocation. Those are sort of my top 3 priorities. All right, there's another module, and it's called Discerning Your Goal. Okay, it says create an essential intent, a goal that is concrete, SMART, which stands for simple, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, and also to inspiring. And the tip here is make it practical, include an end condition, how will you know when you are done, and see if it makes you feel a sense of possibility and hope. An essential intent that is concrete and smart and inspiring. And I'm going to add just now, like, something that I can do under my own power that I don't need someone else to do for me or assist me with. So I said relationships, wellness, and vocation. Okay, here's a goal. I'm working on this podcast that is part of my vocation. Let's say I want to create 52 podcasts and set them to auto post. And I want to get that done by the end of the year. So right now it's August 26th of 2018. So by August 26th of 2019, I want to have created and published 52 podcasts. That's cool. Let me write that down on a sheet of paper so I can have that for reference later. So, create and publish 52 podcasts by August 26th of 2019. Okay. All right, subtracting the extraneous to bring to life what matters. That's the next little module. And the first question in this module is, using your essential intent as an alignment tool, which commitment that you already have is a mistake? So I recently did edit something out of my life. I was planning at the end of spring to introduce my son to the Boy Scouts and begin Boy Scouting life. I thought that the time spent in nature and learning skills and socializing with the boys and the Boy Scout leaders and the girls now, because there are girls in Girl Scouts. I forgot that for a moment because I'm old. Would be really beneficial for both my son and for me, because I figured we'd be getting sunshine and fresh air and campfires and orienteering and badges and community, and it sounded really great. But then over the summer, I got these little inklings that I wasn't really feeling the Boy Scout thing anymore. But I was willing to do it if my son wanted to. So as August came rolling in and it was almost time to go to the first meeting of the year, I asked my son, do you want to be in Boy Scouts? And he said, no, I was just going to do that for you. And my husband was in the room. I said, honey, is it okay if we don't do Boy Scouts? Because he was a Boy Scout. For a long, long time. And he said, yeah, that's fine. You don't need to. And just like that, the commitments and time of Boy Scouts were lifted from my shoulders, and I felt tremendously free. And when I say this, I say this with all due respect to the Boy Scouts, because I feel they're an incredible institution that has for a long time done a lot of good and has learned from their mistakes and gets better every day. And maybe at some point I will be a committed leader and helper in the Boy Scouts, but that's not for right now. So that's a commitment that I narrowly avoided, but I'm avoiding the question. The question is which commitment that I already have is a mistake. I'm not sure. I'm planning to do some live streaming for reflective journaling, and I have a lot of trepidation around that, so I may end up not doing the live streaming, or I may try just experimenting with that to see how that works. I've been wondering how well teaching piano lessons and voice lessons while I work on building up this reflective journaling business works for me, and if I need to stop doing that in order to focus. I've been wondering if it's really the time to learn Spanish, which I've been working on for years, but I recently slipped off the horse, and I've been feeling this nagging urge to get back on the Spanish train because there are Spanish-speaking women in my life. They're at the school where my son goes and drop off and pick off, and I have a house cleaner and a team with her that speaks Spanish, and I would love to be able to speak Spanish with them. And I love to travel, and I'd like to be able to speak Spanish and travel to all these Spanish-speaking countries and not only get around, but build friendships and form community with places like people in like Argentina or Belize or Spain. Be great. But I think that of all the things going on in my life, learning Spanish has the least urgency. It's least aligned with the path I'm pursuing now. And although I may go back to learning Spanish later, right now I'm in such a blitz of activity, reflective journaling, that I can probably just let that go and keep myself focused. Oh, that's so hard for me. I want to do all the things. So, okay, we'll let Spanish drop. And the next question is, in which area of your life are you forcing a match? Oh, that's a tough one. So I guess that means, like, where am I really trying to make something work where it may not be truly working? And the first thing I'm thinking of is this time when I drop off and pick up my son. And I really want to form great friendships with the parents I meet at school, because I'd love to have this legacy of children being friends and growing up with each other, and the parents also being friends and, you know, hanging out together and cherishing each other as years roll by, and we're friends for 30 years and really regular parts of each other's lives, supporting each other. And I think I'm trying too hard, and I'm not really, I'm pushing too hard on certain friendships when maybe I'm not being received easily, or maybe when I find the other person not quite a great fit for me, and I need to just focus on those friendships there that work effortlessly and just are natural, and I don't need to, you know, be overly friendly and overly aggressive about setting up play dates with the people who are maybe not into it, or when I'm not really into them. So I'd say that's an area of my life in which I've been forcing matches, and I can let go of some of that pressure. Okay, so the next question in this module is, how can you remove soft, casual commitments in order to stay in alignment with your essential intent? Okay, so my essential intent was to make 52 podcasts by August 26th of 2019. Wow. Okay, so I do the podcasts generally when I'm alone. So I'm generally alone in the early morning. So if I get up at like 6, I have some time before everybody wakes up to, do my hour-long think and drink my coffee and do my exercise and try to put out a podcast. So what I'm seeing there is that trying to cram all that in to a morning time when I wake up at varied hours. Sometimes I'm up at 4, sometimes I'm up at 6:45. I can't really count on that time. So what I should do is look at the times when I have appointments with clients, piano students and voice students and reflective journaling clients, and see if I can move them to a time in the day when I'm not alone. But then I have to think about that quality time with my family. So it may be that I need to let some of these one-on-one lessons attrite and then not replace them. And I've actually had this intention for a while, and it turns out to be a bit difficult because at this point I have enough of a reputation as a piano and voice teacher that I still get referrals, and I have a hard time turning people down because I want to get to know them and I want to help and I love the piano, but that's not in line with building up reflective journaling. So what I may do is just stop taking on new students and serve the ones I currently have as well as I can until they're done. So I'm going to write that down. Stop taking on new music students. That's a tough one. I've been a teacher of music for a long time. Gosh, I'm old. I was 22 when I started, and I'm 38 now. So you do the arithmetic, because I'm still in the early morning. Okay, so the next question is, in which ways in your life are you setting up boundaries, assuming that boundaries are a good thing? Boundaries. I used to have this fierce boundary where I would only check my email on Thursdays and Fridays, and for a while that really served me. But I also was doing a thing where I wouldn't pick up my cell phone when it rang, and I wouldn't respond to text messages, and I wouldn't respond to Facebook instant messages, so I was really hard to get a hold of. And I think during the time of my life when I needed a lot of solitude to think and to figure out where I wanted to go, that was a useful boundary because it prevented other people from determining how I would spend my time. But once I figured out that being a go-giver is one of my primary values, it seemed more important to be available to people and to see each message as an opportunity to give. So I significantly loosened that boundary and in fact made it a priority to get back to people in order to see how I could be of help. So I kind of lost that boundary. But I think a boundary that I set up now that is useful is that when I am doing my hour-long think, or I'm making the podcast, or I'm brainstorming, I make sure to turn off my screens, and I let people know that I shouldn't be interrupted, and I just create time for that. So I think that's a boundary I'm setting up really well. And I'm also not allowing people who don't lift me up into my life. I'm just not pursuing relationships with people who drain my energy or in whose presence I feel insecure. So I'm really promoting vibrant friendships that help me feel lifted up and empowered instead of friendships and connections that don't bring out the best in me. Which boundaries could you set up now that would be useful? Consider the regular use of your time and your access to others via technological communication devices. Which boundaries could I set up now? I feel like I could set up more boundaries to spend quality time with my family. I've been noticing that lately. I go on date night with my husband, and I'm so tired from doing the work of reflective journaling and teaching that my mind is blank because it's fuzzed over with all the thinking I've done during the day. It's hard for me to have the energy to engage in conversation with him, and then all I want to do after dinner is play Minecraft until it's time to go to bed. So I think a boundary I could set up is prioritizing time to eat and to rest during my workday, and then do my absolute best not to still be obsessed with my work when I'm with my family. Okay. How can you remove distractions in order to stay on track with your essential intent? Oh. Okay. Wow. So my essential intent is the podcasts by next year. And that will require alone time and brainstorming time and production time and editing time, as well as the time it takes to post them and write up the blurbs and promote them. So the things I'm doing right now, I'm really reading a lot of books and learning a lot of techniques to make my coaching stronger. And I'm spending time communicating with the Reflective Journaling Facebook group to get to know these people, and I'm teaching my lessons, and I'm helping my little one with school and homework and drop off and pick up, and I'm working hard on my movement, and well, not working hard, but enjoying movement and trying to ease my aches and pains. And I'm also really loving taking naps and spending time with my family. So really, I feel like my life is already pretty well centered, but I think I'm encountering a time crunch, and I don't want to get rid of anything. What are my distractions? My distractions are things like the regular Facebook feed, also Netflix is a distraction. So I think what I could do, I know what a boundary I'm setting up now is. I totally forgot this. There's an app called Cold Turkey that you can install on your desktop and your phone, and it just blocks the time-wasting devices. It blocks Facebook, the oatmeal, and Amazon, and Netflix, and YouTube, and like this whole list of like a gazillion time-wasting workshops. And I've actually got that installed right now, and it is on for a total of 22 days, and I've gotten so used to it that I forgot it was there. So I'm going to kind of cheat and use that as a boundary that I've set up now. That is useful. Okay, so I cheated my way out of that, but it's a good example. The next question is, how can you remove distractions in order to stay on track with your essential intent? One thing I could do is move my setup into another room so I can shut the door and create my podcasts while my family is home, and just get it done and off my plate without fear of background noise, without fear of being interrupted with a quick question, etc. So that's one little thing I could do. Another thing I could do is just plug in a specific time during the week when I'm going to create and post my podcast, and then block it off and turn off the phone, let people know not to come by, and just do it then. Okay, we'll call that my distraction removal brainstorm. Let's move on to the next question. How can you create buffers of time and energy to make your work on your essential intent as frictionless as possible? So one thing I could do is create my podcasts in advance. So I know that I don't need to make a podcast each week and have this like sword of Damocles hanging over me, like, oh no, I'm not going to have a regular drip of podcasts. Oh no, I'm going to miss a week. So that's one thing I could do, is just set them up a few weeks in advance and then keep creating them with that buffer. And Another thing I could do for my buffer of energy is just make sure to eat and sleep and do my wellness, like not my wellness, but do my movement so I'm well and I have the physical reserves to do things. And another thing I could do is keep reading, keep training, keep learning. So my creativity, which is a fuel source for me, is inspiring me to work on that intent. So the next question is, which constraints or obstacles are slowing you down or holding you back? Make a list of 5. So I realized that my first few stabs at this podcast were way too elaborate. I was putting in music and I was trying to be like create like coaching lessons or lectures or what have you. So there was being over elaborate. There was trying to be a teacher, and I'm not a teacher. I'm a coach. And I was trying to perform the podcast when my family was up and about and doing noise, and that was just interfering with quality time with them and making a less than ideal podcast. I think another thing is that I'm feeling fear about the podcast, and I'm not sure it's going to work, so I could approach it with greater trust in the outcome and greater confidence and less attachment to a certain outcome and just kind of let it ride. And then just feel free to keep tweaking and experimenting, because I was trying to lock myself into these very rigid podcast types and lengths and what have you. So the next question is, if you were to line up your obstacles from most to least hindering, in which order would the obstacles be in that queue? Okay, so I didn't write down those obstacles, so I basically don't even know what I said. But I think the most important thing for me to do is keep streamlining, keep experimenting, keep making it more natural and less effortful. So simplify and innovate and be less attached to the outcome. So the next question is, how can you do something simple every day to move your progress forward? I think that's simple. I can keep researching reflective journaling techniques, creating little structures, learning more about coaching, and refining the process of becoming as a person and uncovering what really works as people figure out who they are and what they would like to do and what their whys are, etc. So training every day is a simple thing, and it's something that comes very naturally to me and isn't this like big job that hangs over me. Okay, final thing is the last but not least module, which has only one question, so we're almost done. And that final question is, how can you celebrate small wins? I actually came up with this because I've done this exercise before, and my idea was to, one, write them down so I can see them later, and the other one was every time I'm like, aha, that was a small win, I can go out into my garden, because I've got this big jungly garden out in my front yard taking up half my lawn, which is an extreme permaculture garden. It's based on ecological models, so it's not very tidy. It's wild. And I thought what I could do is just go out when I have a small win and plant one seed kind of randomly in the garden. And for me, that feels extremely beautiful as a metaphor, because not every seed will sprout, but some seeds will, and they'll surprise you, and they'll change the landscape in important ways, connecting with the roots of other plants and soil microbes, and maybe some plants will shade other plants out, or maybe some plants will function as nursery plants, and it'll all kind of create this chain of cause and effect, a network of connectivity that works for this place, in this time, in this situation, and in this context of where we are right now. So that's my way of celebrating small wins. Thank you for listening to this episode. And I'm trying to scroll down and find my ending blurb. Here it is. Thank you for listening to this episode of Reflective Journaling. You can find the Reflective Journaling community at www.facebook.com/groups/Reflective Journaling Community. This podcast is a pay-what-you-want resource. Throw me money at www.paypal.me/MSHATHVRI. That's MSHATHVRI. And check out our website. Check out my website at www.reflectivejournaling.net. And remember, think, write, act, repeat.